Thank you for joining us on Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and today we're coming to you from Otterbock, Kenya, here in Nairobi. Now, according to the 2019 population census, persons living with a disability are getting closer to the 1 million mark. Now, a majority of that number are those that are living with physical disability. So today we focus on one of the solutions for those with mobility challenges, and that is prosthesis. So how affordable and accessible is this solution? What more can be done for most of them, if not all of them, to access this assistance? We answer these and other questions right after this fact of the matter. A prosthesis or prosthetic implant is an artificial device that replaces a missing body part which may be lost through trauma, disease, or a condition present at birth. Prostheses are intended to restore the normal functions of the missing body part. In the past, prostheses were heavy and made of wood, but with the help of technology and innovation, today they are lighter and closely match the function of a biological limb. The type of prosthesis worn depends on the level of limb loss and functional needs, but due to the cost involved, many go without this intervention.
It was back on 24th of December 2005 at approximately 6:30 in the evening. By then, Jack Isaac was only 2 years, 9 months old. Unfortunately, at a place called Man Eaters along the Mombasa-Nairobi highway, we had a tire burst and our car rolled. We realized that Jack Isaac had lost his leg below the knee. It was a bit of a hard time for the family to adopt, to understand, and to accept that we now were going to live permanently with a child with disability who needed now to be picked from the bed, taken to the toilet, taken to the bathroom, washed, taken from the bathroom, seated on the baby seat, fed, while as he was feeding himself. Literally, we had to do everything for him. It's at this juncture that he had a friend who was working with EPDK, and the friend was approached with a view of finding an alternative mobility tool for Jack. So they had to do some physiotherapy and some wrapping by a tight bandage to streamline the stump, to be able to accept a prosthesis socket, because he was only 3 years, approximately 3 years, 6 months at that time. And we got the first prosthesis, which he still keeps and adores. He needed to go through some therapy because he was not used to this, and it was resulting to blisters on the stump. But with persistence and a lot of love and care and encouragement, he eventually managed to make do with the cheap prosthesis we acquired from Nairobi in EPDK. Now, when he got acquainted to the use of a prosthesis, he could now move on his own. He could go to school without necessarily either me or the mother carrying him to school. He could play with the other kids, although not so well, but at least he could run after his friends, and it was a big turnaround once again for the good.
So let's get to understand the solutions that are there for those with mobility challenges, and actually one of them, as we mentioned, prosthesis. And to help us do so, Moses Gitonga, who is a prosthetist and orthotist at Otterbock, Kenya, and Alice Wanjeri, who is living with a prosthetic leg. Thank you for joining us. And I'll start off with you, Moses. Tell us more about what it is that you do.
Thank you for having me. I'm a certified prosthetist orthotist. That means I do prosthesis and orthosis. The difference is when, God forbid, somebody has an accident or has a cancer and he loses a part of his body, maybe the arm, maybe the leg, they need to go back to what they were doing before. So they come to me, I make something for them, like an arm or a leg. That is the prosthesis. Orthosis is where you have the whole body, but because of maybe a disease like cerebral palsy, spina bifida, you cannot, or polymyelitis, you cannot stand. So we make something that will aid you to stand and walk again.
Which doctors do you work with?
I normally work mostly with orthopedic surgeons who does the amputation, and after that they have to refer to us. Also plastic surgeons, general surgeons. So I work mainly with the doctors, physiotherapists also, I work with them, Gladys, and also occupational therapists.
Now you mentioned about the different needs that come to you. So perhaps you can give us more detail about the patients that you see.
We see people with amputees who have lost their legs. We see also people with cerebral palsy, spina bifida, and also clients with spinal conditions.
Alice, ulipoteza mguu ukiwa umri upi?
Nilikuwa umri wa kitu miaka 10 na kitu na 3 hivi.
Nini ilifanyika?
Nilidungwa na msumari. After kudungwa na msumari sikuenda tetanus. Sasa ndio ilisababisha amputation.
Na ilikuwa amputation ya upande upi wa mguu?
Chini ya goti. Ilianza polepole juu nilikatwa vidole viwili kwanza, alafu ikaenda ikipanda, kwa hivyo operation imefanywa kama 13 hivi.
Mbona hivi? Nini ilifanyika ndio mguu ukatwe?
Niliambiwa ni tetanus. Sasa walikuwa wanaenda wanakata kidogo. After like 1 month hivi 2 months inaanza kidonda tena. Sasa ikafika mpaka hapo wamekata below the knee.
Why would somebody undergo 13 surgeries and not just amputate at the point where you think would be ideal?
My colleagues who are surgeons, they try as much as possible to cut as little as possible, or to try conservatively. Because the higher you go, the lower you gain the mobility, or the lower the mobility. If they start with the ankle and they can save the ankle, she'll be more independent than losing the ankle. But I think that was the case for her. We normally see this also in diabetes, where they start with the toe as they come progressing until where the infection is no longer there.
So most people identify with prosthetic limbs, you know, prosthetic arms or legs. Do we have prosthetics for any other parts of the body?
Yes, we do. We can make a prosthesis for the finger. We can make the prosthesis for the hand. We can make prosthesis for arm, any appendages that are there.
So when you see a patient walk through your doors, what is the treatment cycle that they go through?
The first thing we do is we do assessment. In assessment, we do 2 things. We assess the patient physically and also mentally. And we also try to see whether the patient is qualified to get a prosthesis. Because Gladys, as you know, it's not all candidates who are amputated, they can get a prosthesis.
Really? Why?
There are so many factors that we look. Maybe the patient has a wound, he cannot stand on that area. It's quite open. Maybe he has contractures, he cannot stand for that.
What are contractures?
Contractures is when you get the amputation and you don't get the prosthesis early. So you sit mostly on the wheelchairs and you get the contractures. Maybe later I can show you where the contractures. I'll ask Alice, maybe we can remove the prosthesis so that I can see. Okay. Then we remove the liner. It's okay. Yes. I can keep this one for you. Just roll it. Maybe you can keep it somewhere. There, next to you. The first thing, Gladys, that we do is to look at the body morphology. Body morphology is where you look at the shape of the limb I can see clearly now we have a big depression here. This might be caused because maybe she was using a prosthesis that she was tying. So the suspension system was quite not correct, and this is quite common in Kenya and in Africa for that matter. Then the other thing we look is whether there's something that is, whether there's a broken skin or there's a wound or something like that. We can try now to touch it and feel whether there is pain or something like that. Commonly, Gladys, at this stage, the patient come and tells me that I am feeling my toes, although they were cut, or phantom sensation. Phantom sensation is when they feel the toes. If they feel the pain in the toe, this is what we call phantom pain, because it's a force pain. This is because the nerves that were going to the toe, they are passing maybe through this region. We have to also look at the bone areas so that when she bears the weight, she will not feel pain. Any pain? Okay, good, thank you. Here? Okay, anything? Okay. Then after that, Gladys, we look at something we call range of motion. If the client is able to extend the knee or flex the knee, can you cut it? Yes, thank you. Sometimes we have contractures, like I said before, and they limit the client not maybe to flex or to fully extend. Then after that, we put some force to see whether still the muscles have power. Can you try? Yes. This one, Gladys, we do it for so that we can know whether she can be able to carry the prosthesis. For her case, we only do a below knee prosthesis, but because of this laxity of the cruciate ligament, we have to support the knee joint.
So now that is the physical part of the assessment. Okay. So is there another form of assessment that you take the patient through? Sometimes
you can see she needs more, not a prosthesis at this stage. She needs maybe a psychological support or something like that, a counseling, and then she can come and get a prosthesis.
Is there any other assessment apart from the physical and the mental assessment that you conduct?
Yes, we do. Maybe we can go to the second room. I can show you. Okay. Thank you. Maybe? Yeah. Maybe you can use this one. Yes. Thank you. The other one. Is it okay? The height is okay? Thank you. Yeah. So Gladys, as I said, in this phase we do something that we call sensitization, because sometimes the clients are so sensitive that if you touch their stump like this, they start jumping. This one we do it in two phases. We use this ball. It has a spike. It's quite, and then I will try to roll it over in the scar area. How is it? Yeah, it's okay. Good. If the client cannot tolerate this one, she needs therapy. She needs to be trained until this area is sensitive. Okay?
Is insensitive.
Insensitive.
Okay.
Sorry for that. The other thing is what we do, we try also to localize and to know whether she can feel or not. Okay? Still whether the nerves are okay or not. Kelly, can you close your eyes? Thank you. Can you feel my finger? Yes. Where is it? Okay, that's a good one. You see? Yeah, it's not quite okay. So also we have to test whether she can separate from a cold or a hot sensation. Okay. Kindly, can you close your eyes? Is it hot or cold? Cold. Okay. What about now? Cold. Which one is colder? This one? The second one. Okay, that's quite okay. Good.
So all her senses
they are okay, but she cannot localize. This means that when I put the prosthesis for her, Gladys, she will tell me exactly where the pain is coming from. The other thing I didn't mention, we have to also check the range of motion. And our physiotherapist will do that for us.
So at this point, we take a short break on Health Diary. When we come back, we understand what the therapy session is about and see how best this goes to help those with mobility challenges. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Health Diary. Today we are understanding the various solutions that are out there for those living with mobility challenges. And today we're focusing on prosthesis. And we are now joined by Becky, who is a physiotherapist. And of course, we still have Alice, who lives with a prosthetic leg. And at this point, Becky, you are going to take us through the therapy session.
Yes.
What does it entail?
After the assessment, then we basically find out whether the patient has issues with the joints, with the muscles, and everything else, like maybe shortening. Shortening is whereby there's muscle spasms or contractures. Contractures normally form when a patient or a person has been immobile for some time, so the joint tends to be stiff. Instead of having full range of motion, there's limitation. Either the knee flexes or the knee is in extension and the hip is in a flexion movement. So we test that. At this point, we are going to test for the iliopsoas muscle, which is a hip flexor. So I'm going to ask Alice. Alice, kindly bend your knees. Both of them. You can use your hands to push your knees to your stomach, like that. Then release one of these legs. Put your hands comfortably. Are you comfortable? Yes. You can release this hand. At that point, I put my hand underneath. Now stretch completely. Follow my lead and try to put the leg down slowly. 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 Up to the end. Any pain? No. At this point, I'm able to feel whether her pelvis is moving anteriorly, posteriorly, or there's a limitation.
And those are the ranges of motion.
Exactly. For Alice, good for us, there's no contracture, there's no limitation. But as we can see, we have a lot of issues going down here at the knee joint. The ligaments are already tight. So then I talk to the prosthetic, Moses, and tell him at this point we will have to do something for the ligaments or not. Because she has used her prosthesis for a long period of time, we can't be able to do anything in regard to physiotherapy. But when Moses is making the prosthesis, there's a way they can make it so that she's able to go back to a proper alignment and continue with her activities of daily living without any issues whatsoever.
Okay, so Alice, they keep saying that perhaps the prosthesis you were using before was different from what you have right now. What kind was it?
Ilikuwa weak. Juu nakumbuka wakati nilitembea nayo ikavunjika na nikaanguka. Kwa hivyo sasa after hapo ndio nikaamua nitakuja huku Ottobock last year December, na wakanitengenezea ingine ambayo sasa nikitembea nao nasikia niko comfortable kabisa. Juu nilikuwa na uoga, hata vile nilikuja wakanifit siku ya kwanza waliniuliza mbona natembea na uoga. Nilikuwa natumia crutches, natembea na crutches 2, nayo life ilikuwa ni ngumu sana. Nilikuwa nahitaji mtu akuje anisaidie, kama ni kuchota maji, kazi za nyumbani nahitaji mtu, lakini sasa vile niko hivi pengine wao wanihitaji juu niko sawa kabisa.
So from the therapy session, where do we go next?
For Alice, definitely she doesn't need desensitization because she's able to feel, differentiate cold, pins and needles are not there, she doesn't have any pain. We let her go to the next step. They take measurements of the stump in preparation for casting. After they are done with the measurements, then they start the casting process. After casting, then they move on to production, which I'm sure they will be able to take you through.
All right, so this is where we're going to fitting recommendation.
Yes.
We are now at the fitting recommendation stage. Mosses, what exactly happens here?
At this stage, now the client is viable for prosthesis. He is now okay to start the prosthesis. And before that, Gladys, this is a prosthesis. We always tell the client the components or the things that make up a prosthesis. It's made up of a foot, a pylon, and a socket. Okay? And inside the socket, we use a liner so that it can be a buffer between the skin of the patient and the hard socket. For our client here, as you have seen, she's a mobility 3 because she can walk outdoor and indoor.
What are these categories?
These are categories that we categorize each and every amputee. Category 1 is indoor ambulator, the person who sits only in the house, and maybe he's using a crutch or something like, is like an old mom, I can call it like that. Mm-hmm. Mobility 2 is where he can go outside the house, but on under supervision. Maybe somebody is looking after her or him. Mobility 3, where Alice is where unrestricted outdoor. She can walk outside without any limitation. Mobility 4 is higher than that. The clients who do extra, even more than myself, they do maybe sports, and this is mobility classification 4.
At this point, what now happens, apart from now explaining what they need?
Now you have to talk to the client and tell him that yes, and you are viable for this foot, and we make them to touch it, to feel it, okay, even before we engage the process. Yes. What happens, Gladys, is we normally give them silicone liner to avoid the friction, like you can see. All this is caused by the friction. The socket was quite hard and the muscles were moving. To do that, we use a silicone liner. We have to make sure that it's the correct size. Maybe, can you try? Yeah. Can you roll it up? It should not be so tight for the client, and also it should not be so loose for the client. Okay. Yeah, yeah. We normally try to train them to be more independent, like you can see.
Clearly, Alice has been doing this for a while.
Yeah, like that. Now, after this, we are ready now for measurement taking. Measurement or cast taking is done in 2 sessions or in 2 ways. There's the traditional way where we use the plaster of Paris, then we wrap the lip with the plaster of Paris, then it is set and we remove. Okay? But nowadays, we are using the digital way where we are scanning the lip of the client without those plasters and waters allowed, and it gets the actual measurement for Alice. Okay.
So we're trying to establish the size of her prosthesis.
Exactly. Now from this, we can proceed to the production, where we use the covers. There's no human touch in that area, but later we are going to do the pylons and all that. If I tap that button, our production center in Germany will start milling the model for Alice. Mm-hmm. So it's quite fast, and we are looking for it to come here in Kenya.
Okay, all right. So when we come back next Sunday, we'll be looking at now the fitting process, and of course the rehabilitation for the patient to be able to use the prosthesis, right? Okay, so join us then as we understand better this process, but also hear from Alice some of the experiences she's gone through being an amputee and how having a prosthesis has actually changed her quality of life. Thank you for joining us. My name is Gladys Gachanja. We've been coming to you from the Ottobock, Kenya, here in Nairobi. See you then. some sort of physical disability. Now, this morning, Shenda Your World, Skieni, welcome back. Hey, my friend. Atakama, siwezi. So let's get to understand what prosthetics